of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Supervisors Arrington, Boyd Frederick, Molinaro, Esposito, and Underhill have called in and are going to be excused tonight. This time we'll open it up to citizens' comments. Anybody wishing to speak? We're doing that. We did that, didn't we?
It's not finished. It's all moving a little slow tonight. It's all moving a little slow tonight.
We good? All right, at this time, we'll open it up to citizens' comments. Anybody wishing to speak? Anybody wishing to speak? Anybody wishing to speak? Seeing nobody, citizens' comments are closed. Announcements of the chair. At this point, I have none. Supervisor reports. Supervisor Brunick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to report that the PDEC committee did interview our youth and governance for the next term. We have come to a kind of a consensus. We will be discussing all of the youth at our next meeting next Wednesday night and finalizing our selections, which I will then present to you separately, and then you will give us our blessing so that we can go ahead and get our letters out. Thank you.
Thank you. Good turnout this year?
Yes.
Good, good. Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From Human Services, along with the 3 appointments that are on your desk tonight, you will find the Brookside Care Center financial statements ending 2/28/13. As you can see on the front page, they are currently showing a $135,951 profit. As usual, if you have any questions, please contact Fran Pretrick, the administrator of Brookside, or Kelly Diem, the business manager. And I had some notes on reporting on the NACO Legislative Conference, which I am actually trying to find. Apparently, I have lost them in the cloud.
That's that cloud for you. Anything else?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Alverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of brief things from the facilities, golf, highways, parks. I have no cloud, so I can't lose anything. Just my memory here. If we our last meeting was on Monday, the 1st of April, and we did hold it at the new facility that we acquired, the county board acquired for the Parks Department, adjacent to the Highway KD Park. We had an open house. We had a nice group of people come out and able to view the facility. So I urge anybody else that wants to. It's being used every day by the Parks Department, so the gates are open. The people are there if you want to see what we purchased in this past year. Golf courses, we all know the weather's a little bit different this year than last year, and the golf courses are not open. Last year they were open for about 3 weeks by now. There is a chance, according to Dan, that we'll open 9 holes at Petrifying Springs on Thursday, but again, there was still some snow cover in the woods. There's soft conditions, so we're not at that point yet. And as I spoke all of last year, touting the weather for how we were doing on the golf courses, the weather again is going to dictate how we're doing for 2013. You're all going to hear by the Finance Committee meeting, I believe, on Thursday, and possibly some news reports that the golf courses did make a profit this year. We were given some preliminary numbers at our meeting on Monday evening, and the profit is going to be right around the $80,000 mark. 79, 78, 80. Again, it's not totally audited, but we are seeing a profit for last year. The facilities, we've got some projects that have been ongoing, and I've been reporting on. The biggest crown of thorns has been the parking structure, and we are still awaiting some work with the state, with the people that are doing the financials for it, the banking system, and the swipe cards. But we're still looking at a week or two until they have that all squared away, but we've been told it's going to be there here shortly. Another item that we're working on right now, and it was in last year's budget, was a $100,000 study to be done on the building we're sitting at this point, or at this time. The work that we did at the courthouse was done similarly, where we had people come in, study the facade, window, everything to do with the building, and they gave us the recommendations, gave us the ability to do bidding on that project, and there is some work needed on this building that we're sitting in. So that's ongoing at this point. Those are the major things, and everything else as far as facilities is either finished up or finishing up. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Elverman. Do you have a time as far as when we're looking at getting that study or information on this building back?
No.
Okay.
It's just begun.
Okay.
So I'm thinking it's like about a 3-month process. So it would be summer.
Okay, thank you. The last thing I'm going to say is the Vice Chair and I were out at Supervisor Elverman's meeting out there, and I don't often get out past the interstate, but I did, and we really, you should take a look at that building. I am telling you what, it is state-of-the-art, and it gives us quite a facility out there for the west side. It's beautiful, and I would encourage everybody to take a look at it and see what we actually paid for. I mean, it's just, we paid, I mean, it's worth it, and I was very impressed, so I just want to make that comment. Seeing no more lights, supervisor reports are closed.
Ordinance 30 from Public Works Facilities Committee, an ordinance to repeal and recreate Chapter 10 of the Municipal Code of Kenosha County entitled County Parks. Elberman, yes. Noble, yes. Dodge, no. Nudo excused. Skalitsky, yes.
Supervisor Elverman.
I would move ordinance 30.
Ordinance 30 has been moved by Supervisor Elverman, seconded by Supervisor Noble. Supervisor Elverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. The ordinance before you is actually an update to what you would call now an antiquated ordinance. We are trying to update everything that the county has as far as ordinances, and this is one of them. It was gone through page by page, word by word, and when I say antiquated, basically what you're looking at is updating here. At the time that this was written, we didn't have a dog park. You know, I mean, there's language that goes into these ordinances that brings you up to date. We now have dog parks. We have more hiking and biking trails. We have additional parks. It also gives the authority to the people to make day-to-day decisions. And if you go through the old ordinance, again, I use the word antiquated. So this is an upgrade. It brings us into this year with what the county owns, what the county operates, and it brings us up to date. So it's a lot of housekeeping and well written. So I would urge your approval.
Thank you, Supervisor Elverman. Supervisor Dodge.
Yes, during the committee meeting on the parks ordinance changes, I objected to 3 proposed changes. Many of the changes were required because of the committee name change. One change, which would be 10.03 sub 12, prohibited the use of metal detectors without a permit. The other 2 changes took authority from the committee and transferred it to the park director. I'll first speak on the requiring permits for metal detectors. I had offered an amendment, which, after discussion, I withdrew. Parks Director Rudy stated that on occasion, areas were left damaged. He felt permits would identify users and hoped to prevent damage to the park grounds. When I was informed that the permits were annual and there would be no charges for them, I withdrew my proposed amendment. The second issue was 10.05 sub 2, took compliance with the areas designated by the Highway and Parks Committee for the type of use requested it and changed it to designated by the Parks Manager Director. My proposed amendment restoring that authority to the committee failed. I can accept that one. However, the third issue, 10.05 sub 4, deals with appealing a permit which was denied. The appeal was to the committee whose decision was final. This change took the final appeal away from the committee and gave it to the Public Works Director or his/her designee, which would be final. Chairman Elverman stated that he did not want to have to call special meetings due to time restraints, et cetera, to do this. It was also stated that he did not remember having to call special meetings in the past over this issue with existing language. My proposed amendment restoring the authority to the committee failed on a tie vote as the committee was not present. Respecting Chairman Elverman's concerns, I would like to change my amendment from the appeal to the committee to appeal to the committee chairman, whose decision would be final. I feel strongly that the final decision should be made by an elected official, one who is answerable to the public rather than the administration. I therefore move to amend section 10.05, sub 4, to replace Public Works Director or his or her designee to committee chairman or his/her committee designee, and I so move.
We have an amendment on the floor. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Nudo. Okay, on the amendment, anybody wish to speak? Supervisor Rose.
If we are going to have an appeal process, I, in brief, would say that it should be to the committee, not to a single supervisor. I can think of nothing comparable in any of the ordinances where something is denied and there's an appeal, it goes to the committee, not to a single supervisor. So if we are going to have an appeal process here, I think it should go to the committee.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Rose made the point that I was going to make as well. I do like the idea of having it go to elected officials rather than just to administration and the type of appeal process. But again, I think it's incumbent upon the elected officials to operate within the committee structure. And I would encourage that if this were to be modified or changed, it should go before the full appropriate committee. That's my comment.
Thank you, Supervisor Grady. Supervisor Elverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe in making the amendment, Supervisor Dodge said, that I didn't remember something coming before the committee, which I don't. The reason this was streamlined and the whole ordinance is streamlined is because the day-to-day activities are handled by the park manager. When you get into an appeal process, the day-to-day activities again are best handled, in my opinion, by the managing authority, the parks manager. A committee can look at these things, and a committee can not have, again, that day-to-day knowledge of what's going on. We don't run into a whole lot of this, and denying a permit would be very rare. So, I mean, I guess it would be fine if you want to have a committee meeting called, a group of people that have no knowledge of what they're looking at be informed by the Parks Director what the situation is, and then making their decision. But in my opinion, the Parks Director would have the most knowledge. Certainly not be looking at it in any direction, one way or another. So we do it in the county departments day to day. This is nothing different than we do in many departments. So I believe it should be left the way it is, written here, and no harm, no foul. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. Supervisor Decker.
I agree with Supervisor Rose and Supervisor Grady, so I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the amendment to change it from committee chairman to the Public Works Committee. I don't know.
I would need clarification on that, because I thought that's really what he said. I said in his, I think in his dialogue, in his conversation, he mentioned that he would have been okay leaving it up to the chair, but he, in his motion, I think, wanted it to go to the committee. So you'll have to correct me. No, let's have him clarify what his original motion is.
Okay, my motion was that it would be referred to the
Speaker.
committee chairman or his or her committee designee if he's going to be absent.
Okay.
And that was because of timeliness of the process. It would shorten the timeliness of the process, would eliminate the need for a second meeting, and it would still be in the hands of the publicly elected official.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay, we have a friendly amendment by Supervisor Decker. Is it okay with the maker of the motion?
Yes.
Is it okay with the second? Okay. So it'll go back to the committee is what we're saying on this amendment. You still have the floor, Supervisor Decker.
That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that this needs to go back to the committee after it's been denied. Along with any variances that are denied by a town, they still have an appeal process which goes to the Board of Appeals. That is a group of people that meet on occasion. Sometimes they're called into special meetings if it's an emergency. I know that Ben goes and sits during there and he explains everything. These people don't know the issue before they get there typically. There's nothing wrong with this. It needs to go back to the committee if it's been denied. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Supervisor Rose.
I would agree that an appeal of the decision of the administrator is probably going to be rarely used, but it's going to be used in those controversial situations where the person or group seeking the permit has some controversy connected with it. And therefore, I think it is much wiser to have that done by a committee of elected people than by a non-elected administrator. So I would definitely support the amendment.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Dodge.
Oh, no, I'm finished.
Supervisor Grady.
On the amendment, I would support the amendment. I can see there can be certain timeliness issues that may arise here. When we're taking a look at appeal of a particular issue, I think what you wind up with in committee is a forum where you have the administration speak their point, concerned citizen who may be the permit applicant speaks their point, and that's what this whole thing is all about. I mean, that's why we have the type of representational government we have. So whether it goes back to committee or not, you can decide upon that as a separate issue. But I think the process we've outlined here and the amendment that Supervisor Decker made is entirely appropriate, and I'll support it.
Thank you, Supervisor Grady. Supervisor Noble.
I was the one who seconded this amendment and also supported it, and it lost 2-2 with Supervisor Dodge and myself voting in favor of having the committee be the appeal process. And one of the things that came out during the discussion was there is no Public Works Director right now, so I asked, in effect, right now, with no Public Works Director, the person who denied would also be the person who had the final say for appeal. It doesn't seem to, be a very a good process, and the Parks Director said he would probably defer to County Administrator's Chiefs of Staff in this case right now, which sounds like not a very good process either, because it doesn't say anywhere here that what do we do when there is no Public Works Director. So we know we'll always have a committee. The committee is comprised of 5 different people, so I really do believe that's the way the appeal process should be. So I'll support the amendment as I did in committee.
Thank you, Supervisor Noble. Seeing no more lights, all those in favor, roll call on the amendment. We're on the amendment. The amendment. Ron Johnson, Supervisor Johnson, you want to re-hit yours? I know. Redo it, maybe we can get it locked. There we go. Okay, 16-1.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir, you state your point. Supervisor Alverman, do we have an, no, we don't.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to vote on the, on ordinance 30 as amended. All those in favor?
Give him a second.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes.
Resolution 107 from Human Service, a resolution to approve the appointment of Virgil Gens to the Kenosha County Human Service Board. Alman, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Anita Johnson, yes. Decker, yes. Arrington, absent. Montemero, yes. Nudo, yes.
Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move resolution 107, 108, and 109 upon being read.
It's been moved to approve resolutions 107, 108, and 109 after being read. It's been seconded by Supervisor Dodge.
108 from Human Service, a resolution to approve the reappointment of Supervisor Ronald Johnson to the Human Service Board. Hallman, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Anita Johnson, yes. Decker, yes. Arrington, absent. Nudo, yes. Montemero, yes. 109 from Human Services, a resolution to approve the appointment of Tracy Nielsen to the Kenosha County Workforce Development Board. Hallman, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Anita Johnson, yes. Decker, yes. Arrington, absent. Nudo, yes. Montemero, yes.
Seeing no lights, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, resolutions 107, 108, and 109 are passed.
Claim Randy Joe Greibel, tire damaged by pothole.
We'll refer that to the Corporation Council.
Approval of the March 19, 2013 minutes by Supervisor Ron Frederick.
I move that the meeting minutes of March 19th be approved.
Okay, it's been moved by Supervisor Ron Frederick, seconded by Supervisor Nudo to approve the minutes of March 19th. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. It's been moved to adjourn by Vice Chair Kubicki, seconded by Supervisor Decker. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Are you opposed, Supervisor O'Day? No? Okay.
I wonder if Noble got that.